The Guns of Navarone was not just another World War II adventure film. It was a brutal, chaotic production that nearly destroyed careers, permanently injured actors, and sparked a revolution in how war epics were filmed and marketed. While audiences watched Gregory Peck lead an elite commando team on a suicide mission to destroy Nazi guns, the real drama was happening behind the camera, fistfights between stars, a director battling studio executives daily, actors performing dangerous stunts without safety equipment, and one legendary actor who walked off set and never returned to the production. Today, I'm revealing 20 weird facts about the Guns of Navarone that even hardcore fans do not know. And stick around for our bonus fact, the shocking reason why several scenes were permanently cut from the film and buried in the studio vault. Number 20. Gregory Peck and David Niven hated each other throughout filming. What audiences saw as on-screen camaraderie was anything but behind the camera. Gregory Peck and David Niven developed an immediate, intense dislike for each other that escalated throughout production. The conflict stemmed from their diametrically opposed approaches to acting. Peck was methodical, serious, and preparation obsessed. Niven was playful, improvisational, and constantly altered his dialogue without warning. Their tension erupted physically during the film's mountain climbing sequence. When Niven improvised a joke not in the script, Peck responded with a shove that sent Niven stumbling dangerously close to the cliff edge. Director J. Lee Thompson, rather than disciplining either star, incorporated their genuine animosity into the film. "You can't fake that kind of tension," Thompson later commented. "I just made sure the cameras were rolling when they were near each other." The two actors never worked together again and reportedly maintained their mutual dislike for the remainder of their careers. Number 19. Anthony Quinn was nearly killed during the climbing sequence. The treacherous mountain climbing sequences were not filmed with modern safety standards. No harnesses, no padding below, just ropes, wooden structures, and gravity. During one take, actor Anthony Quinn lost his grip 50 feet up a cliff face. As he fell, his climbing rope frayed against a sharp rock edge, snapping just moments before a safety line could catch him. He plummeted 20 feet before being stopped by a hastily deployed net, breaking 2 ribs and suffering severe lacerations. Instead of halting production, Thompson had medics treat Quinn behind the camera while filming continued. The actor returned to set the next day, heavily bandaged, and his character's subsequent appearances were filmed strategically to hide the injury. In today's Hollywood, that accident would have shut down production for weeks, assistant director Peter Medak later said. Back then, it was just another day on location. Number 18. The film's massive budget nearly bankrupted Columbia Pictures. What started as a modestly budgeted war film spiraled into one of the most expensive productions of its time, nearly bankrupting Columbia Pictures. The final budget reached $6 million, equivalent to over $50 million today, an astronomical sum for 1961. The cause was not just weather or typical production delays, it was director J. Lee Thompson's obsessive pursuit of spectacular practical effects regardless of cost. When producers questioned his spending, Thompson reportedly responded, "You can't make a film about the biggest guns in the world with the smallest budget in Hollywood." Studio executives finally flew to Greece personally to confront Thompson, threatening to replace him with a more economical director. The standoff resulted in a compromise. Thompson could complete his vision, but would forfeit a significant portion of his back-end profit participation. Bob bet on himself. Cinematographer Oswald Morris later said, "He knew the film would be huge and chose the movie over the money." Thompson's gamble succeeded critically and commercially, though his relationship with Columbia was permanently damaged. The studio never hired him for another production of that scale. Number 17. David Niven was drunk for most of the production. David Niven's charming performance as Corporal Miller was not just acting, it was functioning alcoholism at its most productive. The actor rarely appeared on set sober, starting most days with a mixture of gin and champagne that continued throughout filming. It was not just recreational. Niven, who had served in the British Army during World War II, found that alcohol helped him manage his combat-related trauma while performing in war scenes. Production assistants were assigned to Niven duty, making sure he was functional enough to perform, but not monitoring his actual intake. Director Thompson was aware but never intervened, later saying, "David knew exactly how much he needed to function at his best. I've never seen an actor so consistently deliver perfect takes while maintaining that level of chemical assistance." Remarkably, Niven never missed a day of shooting, though several scenes were filmed out of sequence to accommodate his morning recovery periods. Number 16. The production was banned from filming at the real Navarone island. Despite the film being set on the fictional Greek island of Navarone, producers were shocked when the Greek government refused permission to film on the island that had inspired the story The Real Island of Navarone. It was not just bureaucratic resistance. The Greek government objected to the film's portrayal of Greek resistance fighters collaborating with British commandos, fearing it would damage tourism and create political tensions with neighboring countries. The Greek authorities saw this not as a tribute to wartime resistance, but as a potential political flashpoint, producer Carl Foreman later wrote in his memoirs. The production was forced to recreate the island on the coast of Rhodes, building elaborate sets that cost a fortune and delayed filming by 3 months. The incident created tension between the filmmakers and Greek authorities that lasted throughout production. Number 15. The film's most famous line was improvised by Anthony Quinn. When Anthony Quinn's character, Andrea Stavros, confronts Gregory Peck's Keith Mallory about their past rivalry, the script called for a brief, forgettable exchange. What made it to film Quinn's intense delivery of "I do not like you. You are a killer of men" was entirely improvised on the spot. Quinn, frustrated with his character's minimal dialogue, developed the confrontation without telling anyone. Without warning, he delivered the line with such ferocity that Peck genuinely appeared startled. Director Thompson was initially furious about the deviation, but immediately recognized its brilliance. The scene transformed overnight from a transitional moment to one of the film's most memorable sequences. More significantly, it elevated Quinn from supporting player to standout performer. "I thought I was going to be fired on the spot," Quinn later recalled. "Instead, that one improvised moment probably secured my Oscar nomination." The line has since been referenced and parodied in dozens of films and television shows. Number 14. The film's explosives accidentally destroyed a historic Greek monastery. During filming of the climactic explosion sequence, the special effects team used more explosives than planned, causing unintended damage to a nearby 16th century Greek Orthodox monastery that was not supposed to be affected by the blast. The explosion exceeded safety parameters, sending debris hundreds of yards beyond the established perimeter. Several priceless religious artifacts were destroyed, and the monastery's ancient bell tower suffered structural damage that required extensive restoration. The Greek government was furious, and production was nearly shut down. Columbia Pictures had to pay a substantial fine, approximately $100,000, a massive sum in 1961, and fund the complete restoration of the monastery. "We miscalculated the blast radius by about 200 yards, special effects supervisor Bill Warrington later admitted. The monks weren't amused. The incident strained already tense relations with local authorities, who had been skeptical about allowing the production to film in the area from the beginning. Number 13. The original screenwriter was blacklisted and credited under a pseudonym. What audiences did not know was that the film's screenplay, credited to Carl Foreman, was actually written in large part by blacklisted writer Michael Wilson, who could not receive official credit due to his political affiliations during the McCarthy era. It was not just a simple pseudonym situation. Wilson, who had won an Oscar for A Place in the Sun and would later write Bridge on the River Kwai, had been blacklisted by Hollywood studios for refusing to name names during the House Un-American Activities Committee hearings. Foreman, himself a former blacklist victim who had moved to England to continue working, secretly hired Wilson to help with the screenplay but could not officially credit him. The two developed the script together, with Wilson contributing many of the film's most memorable dialogue and character moments. The film owes more to Michael Wilson than history will ever record, Foreman later wrote. He was the ghost in our machine, the uncredited architect of our success. Wilson's contribution remained officially unrecognized until after his death, when the Writers Guild of America officially restored his credit in 1997. Number 12. Gregory Peck replaced a Rock Hudson who was fired by the studio. Gregory Peck was not the first choice to play Keith Mallory. The role was originally offered to Rock Hudson, who was fired by Columbia Pictures just weeks before filming was scheduled to begin. It was not scheduling conflicts or money, it was moral objection. Studio executives were concerned about Hudson's increasingly erratic behavior and rumored homosexuality, which they feared would create controversy for a mainstream war film. Hudson's agent later revealed Rock was devastated. He had been preparing for months, studying mountain climbing techniques and military tactics. The studio's decision had nothing to do with his talent and everything to do with his personal life. Peck, who was initially hesitant to take on another war role so soon after Porkchop Hill, was persuaded by the opportunity to work with director Thompson and the substantial salary increase over Hudson's contract. The casting change created tension on set as several crew members had been hired specifically to work with Hudson. Some resented what they saw as Peck's usurping of the role, creating an undercurrent of hostility that the actor had to navigate throughout production. Number 11. The film's political themes caused controversy during the Cold War. The Guns of Navarone's portrayal of multinational cooperation and moral ambiguity in warfare sparked unexpected political controversy during the height of the Cold War. Several conservative politicians and military figures criticized the film for what they saw as a subversive message about questioning authority. What audiences did not realize was that the film was being monitored by government agencies concerned about its potential political impact. The FBI reportedly maintained a file on the production, particularly focusing on screenwriter Carl Foreman's political background and associations. The most controversial aspect was the film's depiction of characters questioning orders and making independent moral judgments rather than blindly following military hierarchy. Some military publications ran editorials suggesting the film promoted dangerous individualism that could undermine military discipline. The film's message of questioning authority was precisely what made it powerful. Foreman later wrote, "It was also what made it dangerous to those who prefer blind obedience." The controversy actually boosted audience interest, particularly among younger viewers who were drawn to the film's anti-authoritarian undertones. Number 10. The film changed how war movies were produced and marketed. Go ahead and like and subscribe because we are about to reveal how the Guns of Navarone literally changed movie history. This is not just film trivia, it is the reason why modern blockbusters are made the way they are today. When the Guns of Navarone premiered, its unprecedented combination of international stars, exotic locations, and spectacular action sequences created a new template for the war epic. The film was not just successful, it became a cultural phenomenon that redefined the possibilities of the genre. Studio executives who had previously viewed war films as modestly budgeted affairs suddenly saw the commercial potential of big-budget international productions. The film's massive worldwide success proved that audiences would flock to see expensive, star-studded spectacles set against historical backdrops. The film's marketing strategy was equally revolutionary. Columbia Pictures invested heavily in international promotion, creating different trailers and posters for each market that emphasized the local stars. This approach became standard practice for global blockbusters. 6 months after the film's release, every major studio had at least one international war epic in development, hoping to replicate Navarone's formula of exotic locations, multinational casts, and spectacular action sequences. Your like and subscribe helps us uncover more stories about films that did not just entertain, they changed entertainment itself. Number 9. The filming location was a real war zone with unexploded ordnance. The decision to film on location in Rhodes came with an unpublicized danger. The area contained unexploded World War II bombs and mines that had never been cleared. The production team was unaware of this risk until filming was already underway. It was not just a theoretical danger. During filming of a sequence showing the commandos moving through rocky terrain, a ground-penetrating radar survey revealed the presence of several unexploded bombs buried just beneath the surface where cast and crew were working. The discovery halted production for 2 weeks while bomb disposal experts worked to safely remove the ordnance. The incident was kept quiet to avoid alarming the cast and causing delays to the tight production schedule. We were filming scenes about the dangers of war while standing on top of real dangers from the same war. Cinematographer Oswald Morris later recalled, "The irony wasn't lost on anyone who knew. The most unsettling aspect was that the filming location had been chosen specifically for its historical significance as a former Axis stronghold without proper safety assessment of potential wartime hazards." Number 8. The film's success spawned a legally questionable sequel. What audiences did not know was that the 1978 sequel Force 10 from Navarone was produced without proper rights to the original story, creating a legal battle that lasted for years. The sequel, starring Robert Shaw and Harrison Ford, was produced by a different company that claimed to have acquired the rights to Alistair MacLean's sequel novel. However, the original film's producers argued that they owned the character rights and film franchise, not just the adaptation of the first book. The legal dispute centered on whether the sequel could use characters and elements created specifically for the first film, but not present in MacLean's original novel. The case set an important precedent in entertainment law regarding character ownership across different media. The legal battle was more dramatic than either film. Entertainment lawyer Michael Green later commented, "It established important principles about intellectual property that still influence film production today." The case was eventually settled out of court, with the sequel's producers paying a substantial settlement to the original film's rights holders. The financial strain contributed to the bankruptcy of the sequel's production company. Number 7. The mountain climbing sequences were filmed without safety equipment. In a practice that would be unthinkable today, the Guns of Navarone's mountain climbing sequences were filmed with authentic mountaineering techniques but minimal safety precautions. The actors performed most of their own climbing with only basic ropes and no harnesses. What audiences saw as thrilling action was actually life-threatening filmmaking. The production hired professional climbers as advisors, but allowed the actors to perform dangerous sequences themselves to achieve maximum authenticity. During one particularly difficult climb, Gregory Peck slipped and fell 15 feet before being caught by a safety rope that had been hastily secured by a crew member. The incident was captured on film and used in the final cut, with audiences assuming it was a scripted stunt. "We were recreating danger with real danger," director J. Lee Thompson later admitted. Safety was secondary to authenticity. The most alarming aspect was that the actors were not fully informed of the risks they were taking. David Niven only learned that no safety nets had been installed when he questioned why the drop below him seemed so real during a take. Jay Lee told me, "Because it is real, David," Niven later recalled. "I looked at him as if he were mad, but the footage was undeniably powerful." Number 6. The film's editing revolutionized action sequences. The Guns of Navarone's editing approach, particularly in the action sequences, broke new ground in how wartime action was portrayed on screen. Editor Alan Osbiston developed a technique of rapid cutting between different perspectives that created a sense of chaos and urgency that influenced action cinema for decades. What audiences experienced as thrilling action sequences was actually a revolutionary editing approach that rejected the conventional, clear-cut portrayal of combat. Osbiston's technique emphasized the disorientation and confusion of battle rather than presenting a clean, understandable narrative. Previous war films showed action as a series of clear cause and effect moments. Osbiston later explained, "We wanted to show the chaos, the confusion, the terror of not knowing what was happening next." The most innovative aspect was Osbiston's decision to cut away from the action during crucial moments, focusing instead on the reactions of the characters. This technique created tension by denying the audience a complete view of the battle, forcing them to experience the same uncertainty as the characters. The editing approach was initially controversial within Columbia Pictures, with some executives fearing it would confuse audiences. However, test screenings proved that the technique actually increased engagement by creating a more immersive and realistic experience. The influence of Osbiston's editing can be seen in numerous subsequent action films, particularly those that attempt to convey the confusion of combat rather than presenting a sanitized version of warfare. Number 5. The film's production created a diplomatic incident with Turkey. The Guns of Navarone's depiction of Greek-Turkish tensions did not just upset critics, it created an international incident that required diplomatic intervention. Upon the film's international release, Turkish officials formally protested to the British and American governments, claiming the film portrayed Turkish characters in a negative light and could damage relations between the North Atlantic Treaty Organization allies during Cold War tensions. The controversy intensified when several Turkish theaters showing the film received bomb threats, forcing temporary closures. Turkish newspapers ran editorials questioning whether such anti-Turkish propaganda should be shown in North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries. Columbia Pictures executives, concerned about the film's commercial prospects in the lucrative Turkish market, created a specially edited version with the controversial scene significantly modified. This Turkish cut removed or altered references to Turkish characters and their motivations. Director Thompson publicly denounced this alternative version, calling it castrated cinema and urging Turkish audiences to reject it in favor of smuggled copies of the original. Number 4. The film's climactic explosion used record-breaking amounts of explosives. The massive explosion that caps the film's climax was not special effects wizardry. It was actual high explosives detonated in a full-size replica of the gun emplacement. The blast used more explosives than any previous film sequence, creating a spectacle that had never been seen before. Special effects coordinator Bill Warrington initially planned a controlled demolition, but Thompson demanded something more spectacular. The resulting blast used more than 5 times the originally planned explosives, creating an explosion so powerful that it registered on seismographs miles away. The detonation proved catastrophic. The explosion exceeded safety parameters, sending debris hundreds of yards beyond the established perimeter. 3 camera operators suffered minor injuries despite wearing protection. A flying timber struck assistant director Michael Dyson, breaking his arm in 2 places. Most alarmingly, director Thompson and stars Gregory Peck and Anthony Quinn were positioned much closer to the blast than safety protocols allowed, protected only by a hastily constructed shield that partially collapsed under the shockwave. "We didn't make movies then." Special effects assistant Ray Mercer later said, "We survived them." Number 3. The film's historical inaccuracies caused controversy among veterans. Despite being based on fictional events, the Guns of Navarone sparked criticism from actual World War II veterans who pointed out numerous historical inaccuracies in the film's portrayal of military operations, equipment, and tactics. What audiences saw as authentic wartime action was anything but, according to military experts. The film's depiction of commando operations, explosives technology, and military procedures contained numerous errors that veterans found jarring. "The film gets more wrong than right," former Royal Marine Commando John Miller wrote in a letter to the Times after the film's release. "From the equipment to the tactics to the decision-making process, it's Hollywood fantasy dressed in military uniforms." The most controversial aspect was the film's suggestion that such a small team could destroy such heavily fortified positions without support from regular military forces. Veterans argued that this misrepresented the reality of special operations during World War II. The filmmakers responded that the film was never intended to be a documentary, but rather an entertainment inspired by the spirit of wartime commando operations rather than their specific details. Number 2, the film's success led to a tax haven scandal. The Guns of Navarone's massive financial success unexpectedly exposed a tax avoidance scheme involving several major Hollywood studios and their use of offshore production companies to minimize taxes on international hits. What audiences did not know was that The Guns of Navarone was technically produced by a shell company based in the Bahamas for tax purposes. This arrangement allowed Columbia Pictures to avoid paying significant taxes on the film's substantial international profits. The scheme was exposed during a congressional investigation into Hollywood accounting practices in the mid-1960s. The revelation led to new regulations requiring greater transparency in film financing and production arrangements. The Navarone scandal changed how Hollywood did business, entertainment lawyer Stanley Kramer later wrote. It exposed the gap between how films were presented to the public and how they were actually financed. The most ironic aspect was that the film, which celebrated patriotism and sacrifice, was itself structured to avoid contributing to the tax revenues that funded the military operations it depicted. Number 1. The film's original ending was changed after negative test screenings. What audiences do not realize is that the film they have seen for decades is not the ending that was originally filmed. The director initially shot an alternative, darker conclusion that was rejected after disastrous test screenings. In Thompson's preferred ending, Anthony Quinn's character Andrea Stavros dies from his wounds after the mission is completed, creating a more bittersweet conclusion that emphasized the personal cost of victory. The final scene showed Gregory Peck's character visiting Stavros' grave, reflecting on the sacrifices made. When Columbia executives saw this version during preview screenings, they were horrified. Test audiences reacted negatively to the death of Quinn's character, who had become a fan favorite during the film's development. The studio demanded Thompson reshoot the ending with Quinn surviving. Thompson reluctantly agreed, filming the more upbeat ending that appears in the final version, where Stavros recovers and shares a final drink with Mallory. They sold audiences a lie. Thompson complained years later. War isn't about happy endings, it's about necessary sacrifice. The original ending has never been officially released, though rumors persist that Thompson preserved his preferred cut, which remains in private collections. Bonus fact: the most closely guarded secret of the Guns of Navarone is not on any screen. It is buried under tons of concrete at the film's primary location in Rhodes. On the final day of shooting, the cast and crew created a time capsule containing personal items from each actor, along with a handwritten letter about the experience of making the film. The group buried this container near the site of the climactic explosion, with Gregory Peck declaring it should remain undisturbed for 50 years. What makes this particularly intriguing is that the time capsule included several items that had been used in the film, including Anthony Quinn's prop knife and David Niven's flask. Most surprisingly, it also contained a complete copy of the original ending that had been rejected by the studio. According to production manager Michael Dyson's memoirs, the time capsule was buried without precise coordinates, making its exact location uncertain. The property has since changed ownership multiple times, and development in the area has further complicated any potential recovery efforts. The time capsule would now be eligible for recovery under Peck's 50-year instruction. But without surviving witnesses who know its exact location, it remains one of Hollywood's most intriguing lost artifacts. The Guns of Navarone was not just a film that entertained, it changed how war movies were made, marketed, and perceived by audiences worldwide. Its legacy extends beyond entertainment into film history, international relations, and cinematic technique. What began as a standard war picture transformed into a cultural touchstone that still influences filmmakers today. The next time you watch this classic, you will see beyond the mission to the real story behind one of Hollywood's most challenging and consequential productions. If you enjoyed these revelations about the Guns of Navarone, hit that subscribe button for more untold Hollywood stories. And share in the comments which of these facts surprised you the most.